Oh boy, I really did it this time. Greetings, Retro Zoltan here, introducing the Powkiddy x55. This is going to be a different sort of video for me, and to be honest, when all this happened to me, it took me several days to figure out how I was going to handle this. I figure I would talk about my experience and hopefully warn others looking to pick up this device. If the title of this video got you curious, trust me, you want to stick around. So let's get started and I'll tell you what happened to me. If you watch my channel regularly, you know that sometimes I'm tempted to buy used handhelds because I can get them quicker, and they usually cost less money. I like a good deal. I kind of like getting them with problems sometimes too, if it's something I can handle fixing. I watched a very popular YouTube reviewer destroy the Powkiddy x55, and I kind of felt inspired to experience it for myself. Certainly, it couldn't be as bad as he made it out to be, so I reached out to protect him from getting any flack from anyone. Let's just call him Reviewer X. Wait, is there someone called the Reviewer X? Oh, yeah. Of course there is. Okay, I need to come up with something no one has yet. Let's call this person Retro Dude X Man 32. Anyone have that? No? Okay, let's continue. So I contacted Retro Dude X Man 32 about a handheld he just reviewed, and I know sometimes he sells units, so I inquired. I made a deal and it was sent to me. I've bought from him before, so I knew it was going to be solid. It was back in April, and I got flooded with other reviews and finally started looking at it now in September. It seemed fine, and I started to write up my review. It's actually a nice device, and I was using it on the regular. I felt that he was wrong in his review, and I really felt it was sort of a hidden gem that was going for a decent price. Reviews on this were mixed, but overall most people really loved the x55 once they got an operating system called Jealous, that stands for Just Enough Linux, running on these handheld consoles. With this option, I was excited to get to that part of my review and see if it was indeed better than what my Powkiddy x55 came with, which was Emulec 4.5. Overall, I was impressed by the x55 and really started to get into it. I was moving along quite nicely until I saw this video by RetroBreeze that blew my mind. And digging further, I found the x55 had a bit of history already that I found completely interesting. Before the x55 was even ready to be looked at, apparently someone in a separate division of the sales department at Powkiddy sent off unfinished units to a reseller called Mech DIY, who in turn sent them out for review, and as you can imagine, it was a complete flop. The screens were very dim, and firmware apparently was not very polished. And there were even other issues, so of course those reviewing this really had a lot of negative things to say about it. This explains a lot. A big failure, and of course embarrassing for Powkiddy. It's not confirmed, but I'm guessing someone got fired over that. What a mess. I wish I knew how many of these bad units went out. What's worse is Powkiddy tried to save face by putting out the finished product using Jealous instead of Emulec, only to run into more issues. Apparently the version of Jealous was unlicensed, which took an extra full minute to boot up, which upset even more people. So after all that, Powkiddy finally got a licensed version of Jealous to distribute with the finally finished product, and here we are today. Not the smoothest launch by any means. So if you watched an early review of the x55, you may have seen reviewers tear this thing apart. And I can't say I blame them, considering at the time I think it was going for more money as well. What, like $130, $140? Considering it's $80 today, you know things didn't go exactly their way. So what happened with me specifically? Things were going swimmingly, and considering my screen looked decent, I wasn't worried that I got a bad one. That was until I tried to test the Bluetooth option. Fail. And then wireless, which just caused my x55 to reboot. What the hell? An HDMI out? A big fail also. After talking to the Powkiddy community on Reddit, I finally decided to try another operating system. Powkiddy directly told RetroBreeze that these unfinished units could not be software upgraded because of the drivers. So if I can't upgrade it, then essentially I have a bad one. I loaded up Jealous on an SD card and fail. I can hear the music, but I can't see anything. Nothing. Fail city. I tried and tried, but each time, the screen just isn't working. I thought maybe I screwed up, so I connected HDMI out to it, and it works, which just confirms this even more. I have a bad unit. And the interesting thing is, my screen on its original firmware looks great. Maybe it's me, but I don't consider it very dim at all. But that's where the differences stop. I have no way to fix the Bluetooth or the wireless without an upgrade, which I can't do. And I'm stuck with Emulec 4.5. A fate many people would not want. What's even more interesting about this is that these bad units only went out to Mech DIY, and I contacted Retro Dude X-Man32, and he doesn't deal with that reseller at all. So that means either more units left Powkiddy that they don't know about, or want to talk about, or Mech DIY sent it to other resellers, who in turn sent to other reviewers also. Not a good situation for anyone intending to buy one used. The secondhand market could quite well be littered with these things. So my wise advice, don't buy these used, but consider buying new. The X55 is actually quite a good device. I intend on doing a full review eventually. It's worth it. I ordered another one brand new for $80 because I really want to give this thing justice. I really want to show what I've seen so far without the hiccups. Trust me on this, it's worth considering, and I hope you stick around and watch my review once I get the new unit in. If you think you may have a bad Powkiddy X55, you can do the same and confirm this by upgrading to Jealous. It's the only way. If it fails, if you hear music but don't see anything, you have a bad one. A collector's item, if you will. Something that Powkiddy and an embarrassed salesman somewhere wants to forget. If you're buying used, confirm it can run Jealous before anything, and you should be fine. Rumor is the black units, which came much later after the blue, will not have the issue either. So that's another thing to consider when buying used. And that's all I have to say about the X55 experience so far. It's still playable and still fun, but I don't want to review something that was never intended for review. If I do end up selling this down the road, I'll have to do the right thing and tell them that this is a rare prototype that can only run Emulec 4.5. It's not a bad system really, I just can't get my specific one better, ever, not without a hardware upgrade. I hope maybe, just maybe, another OS may be lucky enough to have the drivers for this screen, but I'm not holding my breath. Anyway, thanks for watching, thanks for your support, and I'll see you next time. Bye.